Hey, what's up, Raza? It's your big homie Chico Sam, man. I want to talk to you about the oldest gang or the oldest active gang here in Houston. Somebody asked me that question and said, "Hey, Sam, why don't you make a video about that? Like the oldest gang in Houston." When I say gang, I mean one gang because there's only one. A lot of gangs have come and gone from here. Houston's a very trendy, fast-paced city, so nothing really lasts that long here. Things come and go. But the thing about the Chicano lifestyle, the Cholo and the Pachuco culture, is that even when it's like slows down in popularity, a lot of fools still keep it down. Because it's more of a lifestyle than it is just a regular style. But I mean, like I said, the question was, what is the oldest gang in Houston? Well, that depends. Do you mean like the first gangs, the oldest ones, like the very first ones, or do you mean gangs that are still around, from back in the days? Well, the answer to that question is, look, Houston has always had gangs. We've always had cholos. We've always had pachucos. People have this misconception of Texas that we all like wear diamonds in their mouth and we all use the N-word, or that we all like those rims with that stick out and hit the curb or whatever, and we all say Maine and talk like that. We don't. That's in modern times, that's a very new concept. That's something that happened in the 90s, early to mid 90s, when Chicano culture was almost replaced entirely by Houston rap culture. And Houston rap culture is like that screw and chop, down south kind of music, like Michael Watts or DJ Screw and stuff like that. But before that, it wasn't like that. The first gangs, of course, here in Houston were the Pachuco gangs. You had gangs like, back then, everything was based off of wards. You have first ward, second ward, all the way up until sixth ward. So you had neighborhood gangs. You had Magnolia, which people used to call us avenidas, because Magnolia Park is the streets are all numbers and avenues, so I used to call it las avenidas. You had gangs like First Ward Gang, also known as La Primera. You had the Second Ward Gang. You had the Fifth Ward Gang and the Sixth Ward Gang. You also had other gangs like Las Camisetas Negras, which means the Black Shirt Gang. You had Los Peludos, which meant the long hairs, because the Pachucos used to wear long hair so they could comb their pompadours. You had Los Víboras, which is the snakes. Then you had a little neighborhood right there on the east end, right close to Second Ward. It was called El Alacrán. So you had vatos from there called Los Alacranes. So on and so forth. With Second Ward, With the Second Ward's gang, the biggest gang back then was the black shirts. They were the biggest gang on the East End back then. Well, the biggest gang of them all. You had those kinds of gangs. Some of those gangs lasted up until like the 50s and the 60s. And, towards the 70s, they all got replaced by the Cholo gangs. Like the modern Cholos now. The Cholo gangs, you had gangs like, you still had your wards. You still had Second Ward, First Ward. But you had other gangs like Barrio Cottage Grove. You had Barrio West End. You had Barrio Denver Harbor. You had other gangs in the Heights. In the Heights, you had, you had the White Oak Cholos. You had Puro Heights. You had BCP, Bad Company Posse. You had 8 Ball. You had 6.5 Street. You had Puro Heights, just to name a few. Then you had other gangs like Los Drogos, Los Vagos, so on and so forth. Towards the mid 80s, late 80s, everybody switched up. Everybody wanted to be Bloods and Crips. And then you had gangs that came like from Chicago and like from New York and stuff like that, like the Puerto Rican gangs and the black gangs. And most of those gangs are affiliated with People Nations and Folks Nations. So you have a mixture. You'll see gangs down here that use the forks up and the forks down. You'll see Mexican Crips, Mexican Bloods, so on and so forth, man. There's still little gangs out here. There's still little neighborhoods, pockets, but not really what you would consider like the traditional Cholo type gangs, like from back in the days, or what I would consider Cholos. A lot of the wards have been gentrified, so they don't exist anymore. A lot of the gangs actually moved. The concentration of gangs here in Houston are like on the south side of Houston, like A-Leaf and stuff like that. The Southwest, Bel Air, places like that, which is where the oldest gang actually resides. And the oldest active gang here in Houston would be the Southwest Cholos. The Southwest Cholos started in 1980 or 1981. I don't quite remember, but it was the early 80s. And back then they weren't known as the Southwest Cholos. They were called the Dark Angels. And sometime after like 81, 82, is when they actually changed their name to the Southwest Cholos. And that gang is still active today. Still got members, and it's just still popping. And that's the oldest gang here in Houston.